Hey guys, it's Harrison alongside with Josh, and welcome to the Awkward Sports Podcast. Josh, let's talk some NFL schedules, just NFL season in general. It's closer than you think. I believe training camp is about 2 months away. A month and a half after that, you get the start of the season. Let's talk some football.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the big one that got all the headlines when you talk about how some of the exciting matchups is Monday Night Football, Week 11. You get Kansas City, you get Philadelphia, the Super Bowl rematch everyone's been anticipating. Philly really geared up in the draft. Obviously, we haven't been through training camp yet. We haven't gone through the whole offseason free agency period yet where they can still add some veteran key players. So it's very early to see what these two rosters are going to look like. But a very first glance at those two teams, that's going to be a fun one for sure. And again, we start with week one. Kansas City, obviously the Super Bowl champs, they open up against Detroit. I know historically it would be one of those games where you'd feel like Kansas City would, kind of run through a team like Detroit. But again, it's week one. Anything really happens, and Detroit's been they're coming up here a little
They've
bit.
been a
They've
lot
been very
better.
impressive.
Last year went 9-8, I believe. Upset the Packers in the final game of the season. Really started turning around. They're going to be missing some guys due to some controversies over the offseason, but that story has long been beaten to a dead horse, so we'll leave that be. If you're the Lions and you're going to be the Chiefs, the best scenario is the home opener. Everyone's rusty. You're just coming out of the preseason. No one's played even 20, 30 minutes of football yet. I know, like, obviously, offenses are never out there more than 35 minutes at a time, but you're not even close to that yet because everyone's resting for the regular season. So, best case scenario, start off on the right foot, get the bragging rights that you beat the defending Super Bowl champions, even if it is week one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, that's going to be a great way to kick off the season. Other things to note in the schedule release, some news, the New England Patriots for their home opener. Tom Brady, he will be back at Gillette Stadium. No, not as a player, but they will be honoring him for his remarkable, spectacular career that he had there. So that's gonna be a really cool must-watch moment, I think, for all football fans, just to kind of see what the Patriots do with that, because how dominant they were for 2 decades is just something you don't see every day.
Yeah, and it's going to be a nice reunion for Brady and his longtime team. You'll get to see him with Belichick, Robert Kraft. Maybe they'll bring out like Gronk. I'd like to see maybe even Randy Moss there if possible. Obviously, we don't know
Pretty
who's going to
cool.
be there yet. Just like players from his time with the Patriots from start to finish who are there from different Super Bowls, even backup quarterbacks. Like get Matt Castle in there just to hang out with Tom Brady.
Gotta
Like,
have Bledsoe there. You gotta have Bledsoe there.
oh yeah, Bledsoe will be there. I don't see why he wouldn't be.
Right.
He walks up, Brady shakes his hand. You just kind of see him mouth, "Thanks for the career." Something really messed up like that. No, but it'll be
Yeah.
nice. Like, there's things didn't necessarily seem right between Brady and the Patriots after he left and went to the Bucks. I wonder if the way things ended with the Bucks help him just, have an easier time going back to the Patriots. There's those, ownership discussions about will he own a piece of the Raiders soon. He's been chatting with Mark Davis a little bit, which is its own talking points. Brady's been connected to the Raiders for some time, not the
He's been
Dolphins.
connected. Yeah, I mean, to your point, yeah, sorry to cut you off, but he's been connected to the Raiders going all the way back to his playing days to the playoffs in the Tuck Rule
Tuck
game.
rule.
You look at, they made a whole ESPN little short documentary on that with Charles Woodson and Tom Brady just kind of sitting in a room rewatching that play. And that was kind of funny to kind of see those guys go back and forth over that like 20 plus years later. But yeah, I mean, Vegas Raiders, Brady obviously having interest there. The Raiders could definitely use another investor for sure. Um, uh, Given how much value a lot of these other teams hold in the National Football League, so it's definitely good for them. I know they're in deep discussions, and
Plus,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
yeah, plus his former backup is the quarterback in Jimmy G.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
We got as many Tom Brady connections as we can get. But isn't it kind of weird how it feels like the Tom Brady honors at Gillette Stadium, like just to show how long his career is. Any other one of his peers had this years ago already.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you look
Like
at guys,
Peyton Manning's already a Hall of Famer, and Tom
right?
Brady just retired.
And I'll give you another one. And that one is, kind of impressive. Obviously, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, drafted a couple of years before Brady was. But Calvin Johnson, I mean, I think he entered the league, I think 7 or 8 years after Tom Brady entered the league, and he retired and made it into the Hall of
He's been
Fame.
gone. Oh, he's been gone for a decade, I think.
And he retired and entered the Hall of Fame. While throughout Brady's entire career, Calvin Johnson had a whole Hall of Fame career. LaDainian Tomlinson had a whole Hall of Fame career. It's pretty remarkable. And not only had whole Hall of Fame careers, they had the career, and then they still waited the 5 years that you have to
And
wait in
got into
order
the
to
Hall of Fame.
minimum and still get in. And Brady was playing from all those times. But obviously, we're branching a little bit off topic from the schedule to Tom Brady. His handprints obviously are all over this one, even though he's
How
not
can we not
like
just talk about Tom Brady? It's like
we talk
talking
about.
about LeBron. You have to.
Yeah, and we could talk about them all day, but I want to segue to another thing in the schedules. Obviously, every year, for those obviously that are big into football, every social media team comes out with these schedule release videos, and I'm
Yes.
always kind of fascinated by what they do because some of them are very creative. Some of them are kind of mundane, and other ones like I don't know what you guys are doing, but it is what it is.
Wanted to do something, so we let an intern make a video.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna drop some names of teams I didn't like, but I will talk about ones that I definitely did. Pittsburgh's, I like the Steelers video. They were kind of doing it a little bit off of like the Krusty Krab training video type thing, where they kind of went through their schedule, but they were also kind of pitching ideas that other teams would normally pitch, these unoriginal ideas, and kind of roasting them for it. So I liked that. I really liked Miami's. Miami's was like take me to the movies, and they kind of used like different movie things to show their schedule throughout the video. Where like you had like a little ticket stub, and it said week one versus so and so, and then you had like the cash register when you rung up your concessions, and on the price thing it said another one, and then you had like the whole like the movie screening. They sat down and they had highlights, and it was pretty cool. And then Harrison, maybe what were some that you really liked?
Are we just going to ignore the fact that the Tennessee Titans had the greatest schedule video of all time?
I had to let you. I had to let you. I had
Well,
to set that one up for you.
let's just go around Nashville and ask random people, who's this team? Um, that's the Atlanta, Florida Dolphins. Yeah. Or
I
actually, does the Jacksonville Jaguars actually does not exist?
I love how you loved that one because when I saw the first time the Jacksonville Jaguars came up and it was Chester Cheeto, I lost my mind. We had a field day at work with that. That was hilarious. The Falcons, obviously, they loved it. They changed their Twitter profile name to the name that they
Red
were changing,
Stallions.
Red Stallions. Yes, and I mean, come on. I mean, yes, you go up to people, and I get not that not everybody knows these teams and knows
That's
the logo.
funny.
It's hilarious, but like you can't help that that was like scripted, right? Because like I get that like other people don't know the name.
Okay, let's not go down the route of it was scripted. No, who's gonna think of actually does not exist? Here's how I think it was, and this is like just how reality TV works. Since we're already gonna ruin the magic here, they recorded probably 80 people give answers, and they picked
Right.
like the 10 people who didn't know what the hell they were looking at.
Oh yeah,
Like, I guarantee you they pulled some people up and they went, oh, yeah, that's the New Orleans Saints. That's not an interesting answer. And I guarantee you, at first, they weren't even thinking this. The second someone said something really stupid, they went, oh, we have a gem coming together here.
oh yeah. No, I mean on the sense like I get that point of like all the different people they got, and I completely believe that people don't know what some of these teams are. But to have like the creativeness of to look at the Falcons logo and say Red Stallions as opposed to like I don't really know what that is, or like
That's
Red
because
Ball.
our brains know that's a
Great.
bird.
It's
I
crazy.
mean, I would probably still think that's a bird, maybe if I didn't know football, I'd call it like the Red Hens or something dumb, or the
Like
Cardinals.
Red Hawks, Red Hens, but
Red
like
Hawks, yeah.
that seemed too creative to me. Red Stallions, like I want you to say like
Okay, like that
how do you
was
come up with
that was not. I still don't think that was staged.
that's
I think
impressive.
someone just saw long animal and was just like, stallions? I don't know. That sounds good.
Also, the Chargers, Lightning McQueen. I love the way he said that. That was
I
hilarious. So
forgot about the Lightning McQueen one.
that one got me.
The Pirates from the Caribbean.
The Pirates from the islands of the
The
Caribbean.
islands of the Caribbean.
So good. And then there was one at the Seattle Seahawks. They were like, Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. Wait, no. And then what about the Steelers one? How do you explain that one? They
The
answered that.
69ers, 49er,
How do you
something,
explain that?
what?
Because it says Steelers in the logo. Like it says it in the logos. Like
No,
I
I
don't know
didn't
how
even think about that. It's
you know
like,
what I'm saying? So like that's where I'm kind of skeptical, right? But like at the same time, regardless if it was or wasn't, well done to the Titans. We could go on about that video forever.
wait, we
It
forgot
was
one important thing.
it's a work of art.
The Indianapolis Cowboys.
Yeah, they showed the
People said
Indiana.
that was the Cowboys.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, the Dallas Cowboys. That was great. And it was for the Colts logo. And then the Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Orioles. That was pretty funny because it was like you're kind of close, but it's a different sport. But yeah, no, that was best video out there. Completely agree. I also like what
Absolutely.
Denver did. Denver did the Office theme. They got real character, like they got real cast members from the Office. They got
It was
Angela.
very impressive.
They got Creed. They got Meredith. They did a great job with it, and Peyton Manning obviously in it, and that's something I think the universe needed, an Office mashup with Peyton Manning. I think we all needed it, and we got it. Well done, Denver.
Things you didn't know you needed until it showed up and right in front of you.
It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I do want to segue over to this. Obviously, we talked schedule release videos. We talked a little bit about week one, some of the big matchups that we have, but we're also right in the thick of the NBA postseason.
Yes.
And last night we had a monumental series closing game between the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers in Crypto.com Arena, almost at Staples Center. The brain still trying to adjust to that. But the Lakers closed out the Warriors. And why is that a big deal? Because Steve Kerr, who's been the Golden State Warriors head coach since 2014, has never lost a Western Conference playoff series as a head coach since he's been in the league, which to me, it's almost been 10 years. That is nothing short of spectacular.
That's something you have to hear a second time. When that was first pointed out to me, I was like, what do you mean he's never lost a Western Conference game, series? They're in the Western Conference. And then it occurred to me, the Warriors have only made it either to the finals or just missed the playoffs entirely. We're at the bottom of the standings because everybody was hurt.
Exactly.
Like, literally, there's no kind of good year where, you got bounced in the second round or lost in the conference final. Like, this is just unheard of.
Yeah, and I think that to what you just said also needs to be repeated, right? Like the years that they didn't make the playoffs was because everybody got hurt. Like it's not one of those things where it's like we're just ignoring the years that they missed the playoffs. Like, well, isn't that kind of worse than making the playoffs and losing? Not when you don't have any players, and you can be a great coach in the NBA, but if you don't have the players to win, you're not going to
win.
Look at Greg Popovich. He is widely regarded as one of the two greatest coaches ever, and the Spurs have been next to irrelevant since they broke up the big three with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, and then Kawhi went over to Toronto. And it's one of those things where it was just like they haven't been able to rebuild for like 4 or 5 years. Drafting players
to keep his job because they realize it's not him.
It's not him. And like that's
it's not you. You get to ride it out until they can give you the roster to win again. It's like, look, like just as another sport example, it's like, look, it wasn't Don Mattingly's fault. The Marlins were terrible for 7 or 8 years or however long he was there. It's not Greg Popovich's fault that the Spurs are in a bit of a rebuild. Like it's not like suddenly they lost the magic here, not to reference a different NBA team. I've never understood, and I'm glad the Spurs don't agree with this logic either. Oh, the run is over. We need to just get a new coach, even though the players that won left. Like, oh, he clearly doesn't know how. Oh, it was all just the players. I'm like, you think Phil Jackson was gonna win without Michael Jordan? He didn't.
Yeah, so to branch
You
off
think
of
he was
that,
gonna win without Kobe and Well, he won without Shaq, but he wasn't gonna win without Kobe in LA.
yeah, so to branch off of that, and it's like the Popovich thing we talk about. It's the same reason why the Warriors kept Steve Kerr. I mean, they had historically bad seasons. Some of those years where they had all these injuries because it wasn't Steve Kerr wasn't the issue. It was just they didn't have the players to do it. And drafting in the NBA is hard. If you're not in the lottery, it's very rare that you find a gem in the late rounds, first or second round. There's only 60 picks in a draft. And usually you might be lucky if you find one or two or three generational talented players in one draft class. It just doesn't happen that often. Obviously, the 84 draft with Hakeem and Jordan, the list goes on there.
That's
You
a
have
famous draft for a reason. It's like how the 2003 draft is famous because LeBron, D Wade, Bosh, Carmelo all went within like the top 5.
And the 96 draft had Kobe and it had Ray Allen. And that draft was also a big one. Garnett, I think, was no, Garnett was a little bit earlier. But they had a ton of players in that class as well. But back to the coaching thing, Phil Jackson also kind of knew that better than a lot of coaches too, where it was like he coached the Bulls to win a number of championships, 6 of them. And when Jerry Krause was going to break up the team, I mean, he was very like proactive. Phil Jackson was at kind of scouting out where he would like to go next. And he saw by the end of the 90s that the Lakers did acquire Shaquille O'Neal and they drafted Kobe Bryant. And he was kind of looking at them like, well, if the Bulls are going to break this thing up, I understand that I'm not going to be able to win with whoever they're going to bring in next. And it just, tearing down, getting rid of Pippen, Jordan, Rodman, whoever else. And the Lakers were one of those teams that was on the rise. And he was like, I can win with these guys too. So yeah, he did win without Jordan, but he had basically the next closest thing to it in Kobe Bryant. And then he had the best center in the NBA.
When I said he couldn't win without Jordan, I meant on the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's definitely one of those things. Like you still have to have players to win. And I think we both agree on that. You have to have star players to win in this league. It just is what it is. And sometimes you need to have more than one. And sometimes you need to have more than 2. Phoenix got bounced by Denver. Phoenix had Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and they didn't even make it to the conference finals. So, I mean, next year they're probably going to have to retool that roster again. So it's just one of those things where like
just shows how a perfect storm you need to win a championship. Think of all these super teams they've tried to construct, and just none of them win.
And not anymore because the league nowadays has kind of evolved. Like when LeBron created like one of what people would consider like one of the OG super teams in Miami, back then the league was really balanced where like every team had like a star player and they were all winning, between 20 to 50 games, and like nobody was like historically dominant, but we knew who was good and who wasn't. But when they joined together in Miami, that was like the first like, oh my gosh, this team has 3 players that were on the Olympic team. Like this is kind of insane. This is one of those things that the league hadn't caught up to it yet. Now there's so much talent in the league where you can't just put players all together on one team and expect it to work. You have to have the team chemistry. You have to be able to have a good camaraderie and players that play well together, not just random guys that are stars thrown all together to put together a roster that are all just big names. It won't work in today's game because there's too much talent now. The league is caught up.
The reason why the big 3 work too is because like LeBron, Bosh, and D Wade all wanted to be together. It wasn't some general manager who just said, what if we had these guys kind of have a play dates or something and see if that works? No, like the players planned that one. They're like, hey, we liked playing together in the Olympics. We all got drafted together. We know each other. Let's go be teammates at South Beach.
And yeah, one more point I want to bring up before we kind of wrap this episode up. That team, they were planning it and they were planning on going to Miami. But what's crazy is that thing almost was a big 4. I mean, Chris Paul was kind of involved on it. The reason why that didn't work.
That's so
simple. Here's actually why that didn't work. It's gonna blow your mind. The reason why that didn't happen was over a number. Chris Paul, obviously
Number.
widely known around the league as CP3. Chris Paul has always been number three. Dwayne
Oh,
Wade is number three in Miami, though. And even though his nickname was not like DW3, his nickname was the Flash.
he's
Um,
associated with number three.
it's Dwayne Wade's number. It's his team. So that didn't work. The other one was Chicago. And people forget at the time, even when Miami put the big three together, the Bulls had the number one seed that year. They won 60 games. The Heat won like 57, 58-ish. The Bulls almost had that team come together there. Why? Because Dwayne Wade's hometown is Chicago. He was thinking about going there with LeBron and Bosh to team up with Derrick Rose, the star point guard at the time before the injuries, where he was literally taking the league by storm, youngest player to win MVP. And Derrick Rose just wasn't into the whole super team thing. And I wonder if he looks back on that and maybe has different thoughts. But I wonder how many games that team would have
But
won.
in defense of Derrick Rose, the mindset at the time was you want to be the guy on your team.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what? He almost pulled it off. It's not like he didn't give the Heat a hard time in the playoffs in 2010.
Absolutely. Yeah, they almost did. And that's why, like, when I think of that hypothetical big four, how many games would they have won? Would they have won 74? I mean, would they have set the record? Maybe. I don't know. But like, anyway, that's a little bit about, obviously Steve Kerr, the Warriors, basketball. Got into a little basketball talk. NFL
Always
schedule
great.
came out.
Always great.
Great videos by the social media departments of each team. Very well done. But I think now is the time we got to put a bow on this one, Harrison. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely right.
And again, this has been another episode of Awkward Sports. I'm Josh. That's Harrison. And we will see you next time. What will we talk about? Per usual, we don't
We have
know.
no clue.